I see in other relationships with our own clients in terms of how we're showing up to say, this technology is new.
Yeah.
Your people might not know how to do it. Let us help you. Let us go and sit with you. And my product and engineering teams are spending all this time. And it's like this idea of like shared risk and partnership. And the things that you're saying and kind of resonating with me is like trust, transparency. Like these are all values I think we've had for a long time. And so it's kind of like continuing to lean into those things, even as the technology shifts, I think goes a long way in terms of creating that partnership over time.
Hello, and welcome to Head of the Risk, a podcast series from AXA XL, inviting leaders to engage on topics around leadership, trust, and decision-making in an increasingly fragmented world. I'm your host, Lucy Pilko, CEO of AXA XL in the Americas, and I have the privilege and pleasure of being joined by Eran Agrios on the podcast today. Eran is a Senior Vice President and General Manager for Financial Services at Salesforce. Salesforce is obviously one of the largest and most influential tech platforms on the planet, powering decisions and personalization across teams for every industry, every geography. And I think it'll be a really exciting conversation to compare notes about what we're seeing in the world today, particularly around the tech landscape and what it means for clients, what it means for leaders. And how we all navigate that together. Eran, it's great to be speaking with you today. A very warm welcome.
Thank you.
So Eran, given everything going on around us, what's your take on what is this moment in time? What are we experiencing?
We're experiencing a lot of innovation very quickly, and I think it's an incredibly exciting moment.
From my vantage point, it seems almost impossible to believe things like ChatGPT didn't exist 3 years ago, or at least not publicly launched. And we feel like we're, very much at an inflection point in many ways in terms of the assets and the capabilities that we have at our fingertips. Maybe your thoughts about, the world that we live in today and, what that looks and feels like.
Yeah, I agree with you. We are definitely at an inflection point. If you think about like this transformation that's happening, not only in technology, but I think, as we see every single business trying to transform.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see, which is incredible, is just the pace of transformation. And as leaders, as moms, the way that we're having to adapt to the world. And as you said, 3 years ago, and I have to remind my team that too and say, look at how far we've come, and look at what we can do now. And it's been an incredible journey being at Salesforce, as you mentioned. We are a leader in software. And so we kind of live and breathe this every day, but it's incredible because our customers are too. Every conversation I'm having surrounds these like transformation and opportunities.
I feel this sense, the word opportunity really is one to underscore, because I feel like everybody is talking about what's next, what's possible. And this idea of the pace of change, really feels both, invigorating and frenetic and a little scary all at the same time.
You mentioned like opportunities, and I like to always think of things as the glass half full.
Yeah.
And having the engineering team and product teams kind of roll up into my organization, there's a real learning opportunity because we don't really know. I don't know how far out your planning goes, but, we were doing 3-year plans, 5-year plans, and I'm having to work the engineering and product teams and our customers to say, maybe we only know what the next 18 months looks like at best. And imagine that we're probably going to do 50% of the things are going to fail.
The way I think about it is that it's important at any given time to have a North Star that you're headed to. And that North Star can't be 3 months, 6 months out. There has to be a bigger vision to where you're trying to go. What kind of competitive advantages an organization is trying to build, what kind of impact it's trying to have in the world. But the actual pathway to get there, and whether or not will be exactly that North Star or something plus or minus 20% in either direction, in some ways that's the invigorating part, is that it will, the only thing we know is that it will change.
Exactly.
Over time. But, so I think it's sort of this combination of having long-term vision, or at least aspiration. And then the willingness to pivot and to learn from mistakes along the way.
Yeah. When you think about your North Star vision, are you thinking like 3 to 5 years, or what do you think about?
Yeah, I think about probably in the 3 to 5 years in terms of the contributions that we want to make in the world. And when I think about our job as an insurer, I think our job is to help companies take on risk. That is what drives new products, new services, new ways of doing things, and ultimately growth.
Yeah.
And if we're not there at that rock face, then the importance and the role of insurance is diminished versus what it can and should be.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point around kind of thinking about that long term. And I think we do get into this trap of saying like, oh, everything's happening so quickly and there's a lot of throwaway. So let's just be, react, or do things quickly. But as you were talking about this 3 to 5 year plan, I feel like, you're creating partnerships with your organizations, like the customer base that I serve, yours as well. I mean, to create these like long-term partnerships, right?
Right.
Which that those aren't going to change. That the things that you're doing as a partner may, but having kind of that long-term vision is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about the opportunities in front of us. From your point of view, what are the big opportunities your clients are experiencing with this moment in time?
There's two. One, giving people time back. I think this is a time in history where we're able to say that, save time and focus on the things that are going to be impactful for us as humans, but also, the economy, our clients. The second is new business opportunities. I mean, how exciting is that?
Yeah. As you work with your clients and building their vision and thinking about the opportunities ahead of them, I mean, maybe particularly in light of this topic of the technology landscape changing, what's most exciting for them in terms of the exploration they're going down?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a couple of different angles to that is I think about looking at, and I work in financial services and insurance, so I've got lots of the banks and insurers that we work with, kind of thinking about internally, so, within their company. When I think about financial services, like services is the word in there, and a lot of times what has happened over the years is we've added people to try and scale, to try and connect the so many different systems. I had a customer tell me yesterday, oh, we've got about 60 different systems that this one particular relationship manager group uses to try and get information. I think, my goodness. And we've thrown
way to do it. Yeah.
Typically, yeah. And it's expensive to integrate and all of that. And so I think there's a tremendous opportunity with AI and kind of automation as well, and access to data for us to give people time back. And I kind of look at it as like giving capacity back. And you might meet with more customers, or you may take some time for your family, but generally there's a tremendous opportunity that our customers are seeing to add value to their employees to help them work better and smarter. And not being what I like to call like the manual integration person that's trying to dig around all these systems to try and find these insights. And so there's a real unlock there for, I think, our people to really feel like they can come to work and do their best work. They've got potentially this AI assistant that can help them do some of the things that maybe they've not been able to do before, the insights that they're getting, or avoid the manual work that they were having to do.
Yeah. And I think the notion of time back is appealing no matter who you are, where you work. I don't think any of us feels like 24 hours is enough time in any given day. I also think it's really exciting about the ability to access data really quickly and solve problems faster for end clients. And, that people are getting resolutions to things that concern them, worry them, et cetera, faster and more comprehensively. And that, that is really exciting. Certainly in insurance, it is all about synthesizing information. And, we sit on a treasure trove of information, and we don't always consistently leverage insight and knowledge that exists somewhere in the enterprise.
And these like little what I call like trapped value, right?
Absolutely.
In systems,
systems, people's heads, all of these things. And, if we could just harness all of that, like there just is tremendous potential. I think this is, a highly uncertain time. And we haven't yet seen the promised value materialize. So I think we're kind of at an interesting moment in time in this transformation or this inflection point where the cost of investing in some of these capabilities is high.
Yeah.
And the value is uncertain. But before you get the value, in many ways, the risks show up before you've even been able to get to the economic benefits.
Yeah.
Is that something that your clients are grappling with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you are 100% right. Tremendous amount of time, effort, resources, hard cash going into making these investments. I think people believe that there is, and our customers for sure, and I do for sure, believe that there is value. Like there is no doubt of certainty that, AI is going to transform, the way that we work and the way that we live. I think one of the things that we've seen, and I use Salesforce as an example, we drink our own champagne, as I like to say. And
Not Kool-Aid, but
yeah,
champagne.
Exactly.
That's a place I'd like to work.
But we are an agentic enterprise, and you'll hear Mark Benioff, our CEO, talk about that a lot. And one of the places that we started, as you so correctly called out, was on the service side.
Yeah.
And so if you go to help.salesforce.com today, you're greeted by Agentforce, AI. And the first thing that we did was say, we need to help our customers navigate to answers faster. And searching around a website or picking up the phone and calling our contact center was not was the way of the past, really. And can we leverage AI to help give our customers answers? I need to set up this, or I have a question about that. And so we've seen a tremendous amount of success, and we've seen a tremendous decrease in the calls coming into our contact center. And what that's done is it's freed up the capacity from our service agents to the humans to be able to really get into resolution around bigger problems with our customers that potentially are need a human and need to have a longer conversation. And those questions weren't ever getting fast enough to the queue because they were, we were kind of working on these tactical things that AI is now helping us solve. And the one other example I'll kind of bring is if Heathrow, so a little outside of the industry that I spend time in every day. But, we were talking, we both travel a lot.
Yeah.
And Heathrow uses Salesforce and Agentforce for some of the same reasons that I just described, helping their passengers navigate through the airport. And so if you look at the Heathrow app and you've got questions about, where this is or where my gate is, that's actually AI helping those passengers. So back to your point around value, I think one of the things where we're in this early phase now is there are some pretty clear areas where we know we can find value. Service, as you said, as I mentioned, kind of this relationship manager capacity. I mean, RBC is another example. 90 minutes of prep time spent before they meet with a client. And advisors, they're busy, and meeting with another client means that they could grow their assets under management or further deepen the trust. So giving them that time back, it's about a half a day's time back for these advisors, which is incredible. As you said, like nobody forever has said, here's half a day of time back. So there is value, but I think we have to continue to kind of like really uncover where the opportunity is and be thoughtful about that.
One of the fascinating topics for me that we've been engaging with clients on is on operational technology and using agents to respond and consider to a changing manufacturing landscape, adjusting temperatures, advising which machinery needs downtime to be remediated in some way. Obviously we're seeing in the healthcare field the agentic review of radiology results, etc. And I think that is, a topic that we spend a lot of time on with our clients of how do you balance pushing the envelope, but also, not going so far that you expose your organization or your clients to undue risk. And, I think we'll learn by example as these things roll out. And then there's maybe a more macro challenge associated with the advent of AI, which is the just the infrastructure to actually bring it to life across all of these different use cases.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And just thinking about the overall supply chain, right? In terms of like, there are some hard costs and infrastructure that is needed. I was actually talking to a woman yesterday. I did a panel yesterday, and we were talking about kind of how the younger generation and how they're kind of thinking about AI. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, one of the things that, she just graduated college, and she said, I like AI, but I can tell you the biggest thing that I'm concerned about, and I'm speaking more broadly for like the generation is concerned about, is the impact to the environment.
Yeah.
And, while I see value and as I go into the workforce, my employers are saying, oh, here's all the ways that we can use it. There's skepticism. And it's really interesting because that wasn't necessarily what I thought she was going to say. And it's interesting. She said, I use it, but I use it very purposely and very carefully because I'm concerned about the overall environmental impact. And, talking about data centers and doing it from a sustainable way and thinking about all of the different players that really need to participate, as you mentioned, like insurers and the contractors. As I think about it, and one of the questions you asked me earlier is like, what are you seeing from customers? And I kind of talked about internally, but externally in terms of how our customers are thinking about showing up. I think there's almost like new businesses that are standing up because, as you mentioned, the supply chain. And as I think about the insurance business and I think about banks, I think there's a lot of opportunity for like the new products and services that you might be able to provide in this kind of economy. And I'm just curious because I'm sure you've thought a lot about that as well.
Right now, there's not enough capacity from an insurance perspective out there to support the building of these data centers. Yeah. And so it's a potential bottleneck in a transformative era in business. I think both you and I have a very positive outlook on the world and what's going on around us, but we also have to be cognizant of the other side of the coin. So from your perspective, what are the big challenges and risks companies are facing at this moment in time?
Yeah, I think the biggest, hesitation or pause that I'm seeing, especially being in a regulated industry, is just accuracy. And what if this agent answers a question in the wrong way? Right. And then what happens to my organization from a regulation perspective? So I'm kind of seeing that pause a little bit. That said, I think we can work through that, but we do have to be conscious of kind of the environment that we're in.
Yeah, and we're learning alongside our clients. I mean, from our business perspective, we've recently launched a generative AI endorsement to our cyber policy, which is really all about the risks that companies that are building and training LLMs take on. Oh, wow. What if they use the intellectual property of someone else? Yeah. And so knowing that we don't know exactly how issues might play out between organizations in a court of law. None of those precedents have actually been set yet. We wanted to put some, what we call affirmative coverage, which is when we are very clear about things that are covered in policy. So this endorsement really focuses on affirmative cover for the developers and trainers of LLMs to have some confidence as they go into this unknown space. So, that's an example where we're just acknowledging that the risks and the type of activities that our clients are involved in are changing, but making sure that organizations are asking, the right set of questions at the outset and at least trying to anticipate and prevent or mitigate these issues, I think will go a long way in terms of making this a technology that is positive.
Yeah.
As opposed to one that's
feel
destructive.
Like they can adopt, right? Yeah. Like trust, leading with trust, putting up the guardrails. Yeah. And really, really great point.
And being willing to have these conversations, right? Because we won't know all of the outcomes. But even the process of thinking about it and asking the questions and being transparent about some of the potential pitfalls goes such a long way in having technology that works for everyone.
Yeah, you've kind of like had me think about like the shared risk and what you just described that you're doing with your clients. I see in other relationships with our own clients in terms of how we're showing up to say, this technology is new.
Yeah.
Your people might not know how to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, let us help you. Let us go and sit with you. And my product and engineering teams are spending all this time. And it's like this idea of like shared risk and partnership and the things that you're saying and kind of resonating with me. It's like trust, transparency. Like these are all values I think we've had, in your organization, in my organization for a long time. And so it's kind of like continuing to lean into those things, even as the technology shifts, I think goes a long way in terms of creating that partnership over time.
And, I would say that it's true that it can be beneficial for any given organization to be thoughtful about these topics with them internally and with their partners. But I think it's beneficial if all organizations, take this route. So how do we promote it through standard setting, through lobbying, through discussion with other organizations? But there is you mentioned the human element to all of this.
Yeah. I think that there's this level of compassion that is needed in terms of how quickly we are asking people to change and the things that we're exposing to them at such a rapid rate.
Right.
Being in a technology organization by nature, we are, we love the technology. We want to move quickly. We've always been this fast-paced organization.
Yeah.
I mentioned trust and transparency. Like trust is our number one value at Salesforce. And I think when ChatGPT came out 3 years ago and AI kind of, the agentic AI and generative AI kind of, hit us, one of the first things that we did at Salesforce was not to go and build the first agent, but we actually focused first on what we'd call the trust layer and thought very deeply around how do we think about toxicity? How do we think about bias? How do we think about our customers' information and making sure that that doesn't go into the LLMs to train the LLMs? Like, my goodness, right? Would we break trust if we were doing that? And so it was really interesting because as an organization, we said, we know that there's a lot of push to get out there with some, some AI products. And we've done predictive AI for 12 years, 10 years now, but really in this moment. And so we've kind of focused on that trust layer. And it was really interesting to see the culture of our own employees being confident to go and talk to their customers and say, yes, you might be worried about, your data and the models hallucinating and all, but we've thought about this and here's how. And it was really helpful, from a human perspective to be confident on like the products that we're delivering are going to, continue to kind of reinforce that trust that we've created.
Yeah. And I think, trust is vital.
I think one of the things that we also kind of adopted early on was this idea of like humans and AI agents working together, because there was a lot of, talk early on in the industry about, is AI going to replace everybody, right? And I think we really believe, I'm a human, so I'm hoping we have a role and working together and we design the experiences like that. And I think that's been really helpful too, even from our own employees to kind of see, how they can just be superhuman by having kind of this access to AI and data and insights that they didn't have before.
We're experimenting together in figuring out how we can use these technologies to make our individual personal lives and our professional lives better.
Yeah. As a leader, being able to say, I don't know, or I haven't tried that yet, and really thinking and learning from the teams, I think has been been eye-opening. Some of those use cases that you would have never thought about, and tools. It's the other thing. There's so many tools that are coming up. And it's cool to try them and think about how they can. And so honestly, sometimes the use cases or the use of them, you say, you know what, I can actually probably do that better this way or without it. Yeah. I tease my engineers sometimes. I say, you're walking around with a hammer that says AI on it. That's not everything.
Not everything needs.
Yeah.
Particularly on the generative and the agentic side. I think in some ways the rise of generative AI a few years ago actually created almost a rebirth of traditional AI. Yeah. Because as an insurer, in many respects, we have been using data science forever. It's the only actuarial science is all about looking at large data sets and divining patterns out of those bits of data. And I think the focus on this has allowed us to ask the question, not only when do some of these new generative or agentic solutions make sense, but where can we go further, faster, more intentionally with traditional AI? And it ties back to having just this explosion of data. And I do think one thing that whether we're using traditional AI or just good, human manpower, the access to the data and the ability to take structured and unstructured data and to serve it up to systems, to individuals, means that you have now sort of many more applications of the technologies that we already have.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about data, because I think oftentimes, and going back to, safe AI and known hallucinations and all of that, comes down to the quality. Yeah. And if I think about it, I mean, been at Salesforce for a long time, and we've been having data quality conversations and, data strategy conversations with our clients for years, forever. But there's been such a evolution in the technology in terms of getting access to data. Yeah. And I talked a little bit about this idea of trapped value that's sitting in these different systems. There's unlocking that data, but there's also then using these tools to, as you said, some of them might be more predictive AI to kind of show you the insights. Yeah. But I think being able to take action on those insights. Somebody said to me, an insight might be worth $1, but taking action on that insight might be worth $100, right?
That's a really interesting way to think of it.
Yeah, and I thought, and you think, and so there's probably no way for us to really do that at scale or in a consistent way. And so now I think having these tools, so there's just been this unlock, and I can, as an insurer, the amount of information that you have, and I think no one human brain is able to do that.
This is a moment in time for both of our companies to show up in new ways to support our clients. What is Salesforce doing to make sense of the massive disruption of AI for your clients?
I think it's relying on the values that we've had for the last 26 years. Trust, customer success, innovation, sustainability, and equality. I mean, those are the things that we stand by. And I think in moments where there's lots of uncertainty, kind of showing up like we have as partners over the last 26 years, I think has just kind of solidified that bond that we have with our clients.
Dealing with then conflicting data pieces is an interesting challenge that we're experiencing as well, because when you've had siloed systems with data all over the place and you bring it together, you realize that you've got, 4 different sources of truth around who is the contact person for this client, or which address are they at, or, how much was, this, that, or the other thing. And so, it has also, I think, exposed the lack of attention that companies historically have been able to put into the quality of data.
Yeah. Funny story. We had a customer around the table, and we were working on AI and this agent that they wanted to stand up, and the quality wasn't there. And we were pulling at their knowledge base. It was a service use case, and we were kind of pulling in their knowledge base. And what was happening is the agent was getting confused because they had conflicting data. Yeah. And it was really interesting. We had very senior service representatives, humans, in the room with us. And this woman puts up her hand. She says, "I know why it's getting confused. We actually don't have the policy written down. It's in the most senior people's heads, because all those calls get escalated to us." And so we literally extracted this out of her head and documented it, got rid of everything else. And then the agent was able to kind of obviously react better or know better. And it was so interesting to see that, because this is you would have never before really been able to kind of say we have these 4 things and they're conflicting policies,
One of the use cases that we have put in place, and we've actually seen a lot of our clients also put in place, is around onboarding of new colleagues.
Oh, yeah.
And because one of the things you see, particularly in service-related jobs, is that there's really high turnover in the first month or 2 of someone stepping into a call center role, for example. And when you look at the exit surveys for those employees, you learn that they're just frustrated that they can't give the right answer quickly.
Yeah.
And so they leave before they get to a proficiency level.
Yeah.
And in our world, where some of our products are incredibly complex, it is very technical. The time to proficiency is long.
Yeah.
And I think it is frustrating for our employees. So what we've been doing is building capabilities that can support colleagues in asking all the questions that they have or addressing when they feel like they're getting conflicting information.
And just imagine if you could kind of tick down that turnover.
Right.
Onboarding a new colleague is, it's taxing to do both on the company and
on the employee.
Yeah. And as I think about that use case that you talked about, I'm thinking, man, your clients are going to benefit so much by that, right? Because fast answers, right answers, all of that. So yeah, it's incredibly exciting. I often get asked, the challenges and things like that. And I think, we've talked about that, but I tend to think to be hopeful around where we are and be able to kind of solve things that we've never really been able to solve before and show up for our clients in ways that they need us to, but we just can't because we've got constraints. And so there's things that we're going to have to do along the way to make sure that it's safe and all of that. And we're, as companies and as leaders, I think, generally I see that we're doing that. But there's just a lot of promise, I think, which is exciting.
I agree. And I think it is so important to communicate that to our teams and, to the ecosystem of reach that we have as leaders, that this is a time and a place to be optimistic. If I look back on sort of major technology changes, my takeaway from the sort of historical review of these things is humankind has adapted and thrived and learned how to create new and different jobs and to have more productivity, whether that is cultural and or economic productivity in lots of different ways. And so I feel like this next chapter is going to be, a pretty golden chapter for society, if we think about it that way. And so it's exciting, and we all get to lean in at this moment in time. In moments of tremendous change, I think leadership matters even more than it does on an average day. What is your take on the role of leaders in this moment in time?
I've been thinking about my own leadership style a lot lately and how you navigate through a lot of change. And I think the transparency to the teams that you don't have all the answers. I mean, it has always been something that I've adopted, but I think even more so now, and having open conversations about the positive, which I tend to kind of go towards, but also kind of the opportunities or the things that might be scary for some of our own teams in this world where we're hearing about, does AI replace jobs, or how do I think about the evolution of my own role? So I think creating that transparency and space for our teams is incredibly important at this juncture.
I couldn't agree more. I think the ability to ask questions and to be willing to be asked questions when we don't know all the answers is such an important quality for leaders at this moment.
Yeah.
Eran, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to get to converse with you and to learn from you about how you're meeting the moment in this very exciting inflection point. I hope we continue the dialogue. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining the Ahead of the Risk podcast at AXA XL. We hope you will enjoy other episodes, either on the podcast app of your choice, or you can always head over to YouTube to find more episodes.